Well, it's my very great pleasure this afternoon to be talking with Claire Hardacre and trying to find out about your research, which I know is terribly mysterious, but also, of course, congratulations. I think
Thank you very much.
It can't be far off now.
4 days to go.
4 days. Anything can happen during this interview.
Pushing our luck a bit.
Yes, if it's interrupted, we do apologise. But Claire, tell me about your research, which I believe relies on corpora.
If I had to describe myself, I would say that I am a forensic corpus pragmatician.
Okay.
So
the corpus bit I've got.
Yeah, so there's quite a lot in there. So basically it's a combination of forensic linguistics, corpus linguistics and pragmatics.
Okay, well I'm going to try and unpack that now. The corpus bit I'll just accept. Although I'll come back and ask the question of how you use them perhaps. But okay, forensics, men in white lab, dead bodies, murder shows, those kind of things.
That's the perception.
How on earth are linguists involved in this?
It's a massive field. It's the whole of linguistics, but effectively you are either looking at legal or criminal data, or you are looking at legal or criminal processes that involve language. So for instance, you could be looking at a suicide note, has it been forged? You could be looking at interviews by police, are they abusing their power, how are they getting answers, things like this.
Okay, so you're sort of looking at the evidential base to some extent?
Yes, effectively you could be, for instance, given a bunch of text messages and someone may ask you, are these by the person that these are supposedly by, who owns the telephone? You might analyse them compared to text that you know were by that person, and then you may go to court and basically present your findings.
Okay. How good are we at this? Because I don't know, I might have some qualms about saying somebody should walk free or go to prison just on the basis of linguistic analysis, much as I love linguistics. Am I so sure that the results are so reliable that I'd take somebody's liberty away from them or grant them it? Have I got a legitimate concern, or am I thinking about this too simply?
No, I think you do. I think there's two things, there's two sort of crucial aspects. The first one is, whenever you sort of present your findings or come up with your conclusions, effectively, if you are going to take them into court, it should really be, these are my findings, jury, you decide. So on the basis of what I've come up with, it's for them to make the decision.
But that's book passing a bit, isn't it?
That is book passing. So the second area, which I think is really crucial, is that we need to not be too qualitative about our analysis. It's not good enough for me to sit there and look at one text and look at another and say, well, I think this is different because I've picked X or Y feature, and that's where I bring corpus in.
Okay, so you want some... I've got to be careful about saying rigour in analysis, because I know the analysis of individual texts, of course, can be extremely rigorous, but you want some scalability or some testing.
Yeah.
Okay, but maybe to criticise myself then, I suppose it's rarely if ever the case that the only evidence presented is a linguistic analysis.
Yeah, I mean, what you would hope is that linguistic analysis by itself, forensic linguistics by itself, is almost never going to be sufficient to decide guilt or innocence. It's going to be one factor in with hopefully hundreds of other details. So it's the weight of evidence, and this points in the same direction or it casts down.
Okay, so it's really like any other piece of evidence. It's something else to be sort of weighed in the balance, in the scales of justice, and help send things one way or another, just like DNA evidence doesn't open and shut a case.
Absolutely. And for the most part, it would almost always be used in the case of defence to cast out rather than in the case of prosecution.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, why is that?
It's because it's more suited to casting doubt, to saying, are you sure that this is the set of events that really occurred? It's much harder to take two texts and say, this is definitely the case, this is guaranteed, which is what you need for prosecution. You need beyond reasonable doubt.
Okay, so we've got the forensic bit tied down. I now feel as though I know more about that, and we can start to see how you might use corpora of that, and you've given a justification for doing so. The pragmatician bit. So you're just a very pragmatic person.
Yeah, it's used in a slightly different way to the way that we use it in everyday lay language. So pragmatics is effectively the study of meaning, but that doesn't help distinguish it very well from semantics.
Oh, I was going to say, isn't that semantics?
Semantics obviously being sort of the meaning of words, sort of the given meaning, if you like, ascribed meaning. Pragmatics is almost the meaning between the lines. So if you said to me, you know, do you like Mary and John? And I said, well, I like Mary. And I haven't said anything about John, but the implicit message is that I don't like that person.
And it can also be something as simple as me saying, oh, it's a bit chilly in here.
Exactly.
And hoping that you'll switch on the
heating or do something.
Yes, I agree with that proposition.
Yes,
it might be
yes, it is.
or something.
Exactly.
Okay, so how do you link the pragmatician bit to the forensics? Because I can begin to imagine how you could look at the pragmatician bit using Corpora. I can certainly imagine how you can use the Corpora to look at the forensics bit from what you said. How do the two ends go together, the forensic and the pragmatician?
In the case of pragmatics specifically, what I'm interested in is aggression, deception and manipulation.
All the good stuff.
All the exciting bits. So within forensic linguistics, I like to look at, is this a deceptive piece of data? Is someone being manipulative? Are they threatening? Things like this. So within the forensics, nobody could do everything. Anyone who claims that they do the entire field would be sort of a bit nuts. But within that, I like to sort of analyse, is this a person who's pretending to be somebody else? Are they trying to wind somebody up in a particular way? So that's how I bring pragmatics and forensics together.
So I might even recharacterise you as a forensics person interested in pragmatics who uses Corpora to pursue that. Okay, I've got that now. Okay. Well, does it actually get used? I know that this is a bit aggressive to say, but it all sounds very interesting. Would the courts take any notice of this type of research?
They would. There's been a number of cases. I mean, there's a sort of a few different scattered ones where effectively corpus approaches have been used to identify individuals from forensic data.
And this is in the UK court?
This was in the US. This was the case of the Unabomber.
We see that crank who sent bombs to academics.
He did, yes.
We don't want people doing that.
Exactly. So they analysed his manifesto that he produced, and effectively the question in their case was, here's some text that we know that this individual has produced, and here's a manifesto that we're trying to identify who has written this. And so they found some fairly unique phrases, turns of phrases to link the two.
So is that linked to authorship identification?
Authorship identification, absolutely.
Okay, good. And the UK courts?
In the UK courts, we've had a few interesting cases, particularly recently. We've had an individual called Paul Chambers. He was on Twitter, and what happened with him was it snowed and his flight to Ireland... his flight to Ireland was possibly going to be cancelled, and so he was a little bit annoyed, and he went on Twitter and sort of tweeted this joke, get your shit together, I'm going to blow the airport sky high. Not the funniest joke ever.
No.
Also unwise, given that we'd had quite a few terrorist incidents around about that time. Somebody at the airport spotted the tweet, passed it on to their supervisor. It got passed on, and next
Did they tell him he was a naughty boy and should go home?
They kind of took it a bit more seriously than that. They arrested him, they seized all of his computers, they treated him as a bona fide terrorist. He went to court to basically try and say, I'm sorry, it was just a bad joke. The first hearing, he was found guilty of malicious communication. He had to go all the way to Supreme Court in the end to have that conviction overturned.
Right, so serious stuff.
Exactly.
And did linguists or the analysis of the tweets play any role in that case?
There was a lot of argument over, was this a serious threat? I'm going to blow the airport sky high, was this a serious threat?
Yeah.
Was it not a serious threat? If it's not a serious threat, do we look at his other tweets in relation to this one to establish that it was a joke? So there was effectively linguistic analysis, although in the documents it doesn't get described as that as such.
So are you working much on this type of stuff? Because tweets, of course, are very modish at the moment.
They are.
I've sent a few myself. Are you doing any work on those?
We are indeed. At the moment, I was very lucky. The ESRC, Economic and Social Research Council, has just awarded me £200,000, and what we're doing with that is we are looking at in July 2012, there was an individual called Caroline Criado Perez who campaigned to have a woman on a banknote. She was successful, but unfortunately, a lot of people took a great deal of offence at that and started sending her really horrible rape threats, death threats, bomb threats, just really offended by the idea that she'd, won this campaign. So our interest was, who sends these kinds of threats? Why do they do this? Do they form networks? Do they produce other kinds of threatening behaviour like homophobia, etc.? So what we're doing is we're collecting a huge corpus of tweets. We're essentially mapping individuals who sent offensive tweets, and we're looking into it to sort of see, in particular, we're really interested in the legislation as it currently exists. Is it adequate to deal with this kind of offence when it occurs? When you're trying to track down these individuals, how much evidence do you need to secure a conviction? Lots of things like this.
Okay, so once you conducted this work on Twitter, then what are you going to do? You're going to sort of sit back and look content and think, haha, I know the answer? Or is there something else you're going to do with the research?
Well, in a perfect world, my ideal thing would be to get the results out as widely as possible. So I don't just want to have these results and be very happy with myself. Probably the crucial elements would be to get it out to people who make legislation, people who make policy. So this may end up being organisations, for instance, like Ofcom.
Who are they?
Ofcom, Office of Communication in England, they deal with effectively communicative misbehaviours, but at the moment they don't have legislation to deal with it online, but there is a chance that this may happen in the future.
Yeah, those sound reasonable. Yeah.
So individuals, for instance, MPs, politicians, people like this, people who are effectively in those positions of either investigating or enforcing laws to deal with language, if you like. But whilst that's all very nice, people at the top knowing and being able to do things is only part of the picture for me. The other part that I'm really keen on is that individuals who use the internet on a daily basis or who take care of people who do are also empowered, so that they know that, you know, if this kind of thing happens online, what are the kinds of things I should be looking out for? What can I do? What are the laws that are available to protect me? So this would be school kids, teachers, parents, guardians.
So sort of empowering victims or potential victims.
Yep.
And then policymakers. Now, policymakers, I often hear them talked about, but I think they're quite slippery customers. How on earth does an academic get through to what are very powerful people and persuade them to do something?
Well, in my case, I've been incredibly lucky. Over the past sort of year, I've had quite a bit of work that I've done in the media, and then what actually happens from that is they sometimes get in touch with you and they sort of say, come and do a talk for us. So I've done talks at the Houses of Parliament and the House of Lords.
Oh, really?
Yeah, quite.
What's it like?
Very grand, I have to say. It was like being in a UN meeting. It was wonderful. So I've had a chat with a few different MPs. I sort of, you know, told them this is what we're doing. Are you interested? And they do certainly say, you know, this sounds fantastic. We really want to have your results, particularly from this Twitter project. So if you can get through to them from that way, of course, that's wonderful. I mean, you could obviously try just emailing and, you know, hope for the best. So there's a few different ways if you're fortunate, and the other way, of course, for me, as it just happens, is through the media that tends to get the message out quite widely as well.
Okay. I suppose there's been an issue of jurisdictions as well, because
there is.
Twitter users might come from countries other than the UK, but the tweets are aimed at people in it.
Yeah, I mean, you've got two major problems when you're dealing with online behaviour. You've got your proof and you've got your jurisdiction. Because, for instance, if I was sending an offensive tweet to someone in, say, Australia, you would have me in the UK right now, UK jurisdiction. You would have the person in Australia, Australian jurisdiction, and you would also have the jurisdiction of where the servers are located for Twitter, which I believe is in America at the moment. Right. So potentially 3 jurisdictions. The second problem, proof, is the fact that I could be using a computer in, say, an office that lots of people have access to. Just because we know it came from, say, my computer, do we know that I sent it specifically? Could somebody have hopped on and quickly sent the message?
Good point.
So lots of problems with proof and jurisdiction, which I think need looking at.
Well, that's absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much, Claire.
Thank you.